This particular demonstration is part of the Digital Business Automation Suite. And here, it's what we are going to show you is an integrated platform of 5 automation capabilities that help drive all types of automation projects across an enterprise at speed and scale. So what we are showing today is a use case on typical mortgage application process. It may not be an exhaustive process or exclusive. However, it is one of the steps. This entire process will be much more than what we're going to see today. However, we will try and cover some of the key steps that an enterprise or a financial institution takes to process a mortgage application, right from the time of processing the KYC, the documents that come in, all the way through to the disbursement or taking a decision on the loan. So let's get started. So what I have in front of you is the end-to-end scenario. I'll just run this scenario for you. I hope everybody is able to see the screen. So we have Jane, the customer, who is looking for a mortgage loan. She is looking to buy a house. And we have on the right Peter, who is your DataCap operator. Also, I would request everybody to go on mute if they're not speaking. Thanks. We have Michelle, the mortgage officer, who will do the verification and the validation of the documents that are being presented by Jane, our customer. And then we have Jack, who is the customer service representative. He is a call center agent, a typical call center agent, who will get instructions from Michelle to interact with Jane, either via phone or email, in case there's documentation missing. Then we have Marie, the lead mortgage officer, who is going to take the final decision on the loan. So essentially, she'll come right in the end, where she will have all the facts in front of her, and she can decide whether or not to give this person a loan. So let's get started with the process flow here. So essentially, Jane starts the process. She sends the mortgage application form, which could be a paper form. In this scenario, we've taken a paper form, which is sent for scanning and OCR. So Peter, who receives the form, scans and verifies the mortgage application, and he uses DataCap to do that. And then this task is picked up by Michelle as part of the business automation workflow platform, where she reviews the mortgage application that has been sent by Jane, and she checks all the different parameters that are required. She would, in this scenario, request for additional information because there are a couple of pieces of information that are either old or missing. So we'll see if we can simulate that. And then she will get in touch with Jack and tell Jack to contact the customer to send the missing pieces. And in the back, what will happen is while she is receiving information from Jane, she will also check, a separate. She'll also try and check if the customer has, a current mortgage on her property. So does she have a current mortgage with anybody, any other bank on the property? So how will she do that is by querying the land registrar application. Essentially, this is a FAT client in this demonstration, and it's a Java-based client which we are using to simulate a typical query between the business automation workflow and the land registrar, just to check if the customer has a current mortgage on the property, because that will essentially have a bearing on the loan or the decisioning of the loan. From there, you see that the customer is now sending a payslip because there is some information missing from the loan application form. So she sends the payslip out to the bank, and again the same process is followed. The payslip is verified, and then it is reviewed by Michelle. And then she figures out that the payslip is, let's say the payslip is old, or it's not the most recent payslip that's been sent. So she will ask Jack, the customer rep, to talk to Jane and ask for a recent payslip. She'll also perform a risk assessment now that she's got some information about the customer's income or net income, which is required for risk rating. So she will also perform a risk assessment. We'll see how that happens. For risk assessment in this scenario, we're using ODM, which is the Operational Decision Manager. We will query the ODM platform, and essentially what it does is that it will go back and check if all the parameters to approve the offer are met by Jane. So if she meets all the parameters, the ODM engine will probably give out, it'll send a trigger back to the business automation workflow saying that, yes, this person can be offered a loan. Congratulations, and so on. And then this entire process is completed. Let me just quickly go to the last bit here. Now, there are multiple different ways in which Jane can send out the missing items. Either she can send an email, which can be automatically picked up. You can just have an event handler which can query the email server and pick up the email, scan it, and then do the entire process. Or she can upload it onto a microsite that the bank has, because some banks also offer micro portals where you can go and upload documents. So either way, we will not look at that particular part of the scenario because that requires additional few steps to configure, but it's understood in the demonstration. So right in the end, when all the facts have been gathered, Marie will come into the picture, who is a lead mortgage officer, and take the final decision on the loan. So let's jump right into the demo, and let me show you how these 5 different automation capabilities work. We have set up 5 VMs to orchestrate or emulate this scenario that we just heard. So the 5 VMs are, you have enterprise content management, which is Filenet on VM1. And as you can see on VM2, you have DataCap, which is our OCR and scanning tool. It also validates and verifies the information. You have the workflow tool, which is the business automation workflow. Then you have the RPA tool. Essentially, the RPA tool is automation anywhere in this case. What it does is it has a bot that has been trained to pick up tasks that are triggered by the automation workflow tool, which is VM3. So if it finds a task that has been triggered by the workflow tool, let's say checking the land registrar application or doing the risk assessment, it will just come into play and it will run a robot and perform those steps. The last VM is the ODM, where we have the ODM installed for risk rating. We won't be seeing anything on VM1 and VM5 because those are passive systems. There's nothing to see there. Most of the stuff happens in the background. I'll quickly open the DataCap tool. Let me just quickly log in here. Okay. All right, cool. So we've logged into DataCap. This is the DataCap interface that we have. Kindly let me know if you're able to see my screen or if there's a problem or if you're not able to hear me. And feel free to stop me. Now looking at the DataCap interface, essentially, we have, so let me just delete all this. Now this is where we will pick up the application form that has been sent by Jane. So essentially, Peter, the DataCap operator, will go in and pick the application form for Jane Doe. Okay, he opens the form. The form has been imported into DataCap, and now we do the scan. Now I'm showing all this manually to you all. However, all of this can be automated. This is just to show for this particular demonstration. So you see the loan application form appears over here. We'll just do a submit so that it's submitted for OCR, and let's see what happens. It just takes a couple of minutes to process the information. Now, if you see this particular activity or task has been given a batch number, and essentially there is a task. So it is being profiled right now, and the application DataCap is trying to read what's there in the form. So this particular status, which says pending, will change to verify. So it'll just take a minute to say verify. And when it says verify, we can actually pick up the form and see what the items are inside. Let's just give it a minute. It takes a little bit. Let me just quickly. Okay, there you go. So now the task says verify, which means that we can open this within DataCap. So Peter is opening the form, and he's going to look for information that has been captured. So you've captured the customer name, you've captured the date of birth, you've captured the loan amount that she requires, and you've captured the property address. This is the current property address that she has. Now, if you see, some of these items have been color-coded. The reason why is because either the items that have been captured are incorrect, or there is low confidence shown by DataCap to read those items. So let's look at the first item. It's highlighted in pink, dark pink, because there's something wrong with this particular item. So the date of birth cannot be 1079. So we will change it to, so what he does is he has the correct information, so he changes it to 1979. And if you go down, Peter is also checking the address, and there's something wrong with this address. The system says that there's something wrong, and it doesn't know what's wrong. So we'll come to this later. I'll show you how we go about dealing with this. So he just runs the validations, which will just revalidate all the fields, and he does a submit. Let's do an OK. So this batch, this particular form is being submitted. Now it will be, the event handler in the back will just pick this form and put it into ECM, which is Filenet, in the correct case folder. For this demo, we are using the customer's name as the unique identifier. So anything that appears by the name of Jane Doe will be used to trigger multiple tasks. So now it says export pending. It should say job done if the file has been exported to Filenet. There you go. So this is good. So it says job done, which means that it has picked up this particular file and moved it into the correct case folder based on the customer's name. So let's go back. Now let's go to the workflow system. This is where the mortgage officer's job will start. Now, the mortgage officers, this is a typical workflow system. It could be different for different organizations. I have, in my experience, worked on multiple different workflow systems. Essentially, this is a business process management system, which picks up tasks that have been triggered by other systems in the enterprise. So mortgage officer, and then you have multiple views here. You have the mortgage officer view, and the same system is being used by the customer rep. So we'll come to that later. So now the form has been exported. Now, this system will pick up that form, and as you can see, the form has been picked up, and we can open this form. So mortgage officer is going to review the form like we saw in the process flow. So let's open the form and let's see what appears here. Okay, so we have all the different fields that have been captured on the left. Now she goes all the way down. Now Michelle figures out that there's something wrong with the address, but she doesn't know what it is. So, and she also notices that there is no net income. If there is no net income, she cannot do a risk rating. She cannot find if this customer is worthy enough to get a loan. So she needs the net income information. So she goes to comments, and she will probably tell Jack, hi, I need net income info. Please ask for a recent payslip. Thanks. And I say, Michelle. And she adds the comment. Now, she adds the comment, and she goes to request additional information because she needs additional information on this particular case. So she does that. Right? It's out of her batch. Her basket is empty. This will be picked up maybe sometime during the day by the customer service rep to collect application information. Now he will open the form and he will see what comments have been put by Michelle. And he will come back, and in a production scenario, Michelle will also share the customer's coordinates. So she can share the customer's phone number or the email so that Jack can immediately contact the customer and it's easier for him. So we haven't done that here in this particular one. So let's say Jack finds it and he says, sure, Michelle, I will ask the customer for it. Should get it by tomorrow. Thanks, Jack. Okay. Please mind that a typical mortgage application process does take time. So this is all part of the process flow. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I wrote Michelle here. I wrote Jack. Okay. Yeah, I wrote Jack. So it says, thanks, Jack. So Jack has mentioned that he will contact the customer and ask for the details on net income. So he can close this case, okay, and he does a complete. Okay, he's asked for the customer for the payslip and he does a complete. Now this is out of Jack's basket, okay. Now we go back into Michelle's view, which is the mortgage officer, because Jack has sent some information for Michelle to review. And that way, Michelle knows that Jack has worked on it. So here, Michelle can see this. She goes back and she says, okay, I don't have anything else to change here. I'm waiting for the customer's net income. I do proceed. So now this particular job has been completed where the customer sent an application form. Now the application form was reviewed. There was some information missing. There was some information which seems incorrect, thanks to DataCap. However, they need to contact the customer and get more information. So while we're doing that, Michelle so I can imagine that Jack would have contacted the customer, Jane, and Jane will now send her payslip. But what she does instead is she sends the outdated payslip, and I've mentioned outdated for demo purposes. So she sends the outdated payslip, and it's picked up by DataCap, and it scans it automatically and puts it in a batch and submits it for OCR. And it's the same process again. It will be submitted, and the status will change to export, which means that the form has been OCR'd and has been exported to Filenet, and then the mortgage officer can pick it up from the business automation workflow. So let's wait for this to change. It just takes about half a minute to process this information. Okay. It says it's running, so there's something that DataCap is doing in the back. So in a moment, it should change to verify. There you go. It says pending, and it needs to be verified by Peter. So Peter opens the form. It has been OCR'd. All he needs to figure out if she sent the net income. So there you go. So you have the net income information here. Okay. So that's his job is done. So he will just run the validations to see if there's anything else missing. And then he does a submit to submit the batch so that it goes to Filenet and gets back into the correct case folder. Okay, the export is done. Now let's go back to the mortgage officer. Now if you see, she is getting a payslip right here. And let's open the payslip. And you can see that now the net income information has been provided. But what she realizes is that this net income information is outdated. She looks at the form. So she has all the forms listed here that she receives from the customer. Now she can open any of the forms and check if the information is recent. So she figures out that, by doing her research, that this income information is not updated. So she goes into comments again, and she tells Jack to ask the customer to send the last payslip. So please ask customer to send the last pay slip as info here is outdated. She does an ad. Okay. Now this information will be viewed by Jack at a later time. But what we're going to do here is that one important step. We are also going to see if with this information, can we run a first line risk assessment? Can we still do a risk assessment for this customer just to get an idea if she can get a loan? So she goes into tasks and she'll scroll all the way down. And as you see, one of the tasks here is to perform a risk assessment. Okay, so she will start this particular task. Now what will happen is the system is going to query the ODM engine and figure out a risk rating for this customer and come back with some sort of a summary. Okay, so that's happening in the back. So that task has been started. Let me quickly check something here. Okay, now let me show you something. Now this is the Automation Anywhere console on the RPA VM. Now while the customer's risk rating is being checked in ODM, it also triggers another task to check if the address mentioned on the form is already registered under a different mortgage. So that's where the land registrar application comes into effect. So we will run a bot here which will go back to the land registrar application, which is a fat client. It will query that register and come back with any information about the address. So let's try and start this particular task. Now, as you can see on the bottom right, the bot is running. It's trying to check the address. It says address unknown, and it goes back. So everything happens in a flash. Now, this particular activity, as you can see the bot working, I intentionally stopped the bot and ran it for you guys so that you can see what happens in the back. In an actual scenario, this will be automatically triggered and everything will happen in a flash and you will get the message. So let's go back to the workflow and see what Michelle is up to. Okay, let's go back to the workflow. Now, if you see right here, it says, let me just do a save here. Okay. Okay, so as you can see here on the bottom left-hand side, it says risk assessment message. Congratulations, your offer has been approved. Okay. And there is nothing wrong with the address, at least for now. The address was found. So apparently, even though the net income information is outdated, you know, we could do a preliminary risk assessment for this customer, and we figured out that even with this income, she will be able to get the mortgage. That's what at least ODM is saying. So what will happen now is that she will now click on request additional information so that this goes out of her basket as it has, and we'll go back to the customer rep who needs to read Michelle's comments, and he figures out that it's outdated. So he will come back and say, sure, I will ask the customer for a recent, or let's say last place, for the last payslip. Thanks. Let me say J. Okay. So the comments have been added. Okay. So we're not going to change anything here. There's something still wrong with the address. So we're not going to meddle with the address right now, because I think the address has been the system right now. We don't have to work with the address. We'll probably come to that later if needed. So he does a complete so that it's out of his basket. We come back to the mortgage officer because it would have come back to her. And she will quickly read the comments to figure out if Jack has read it. Yes, Jack has. He's going to contact the customer, and she will just do a proceed right here. Okay, I don't think we need to perform any other tasks. Okay, she does a proceed. Okay. So it's out of her basket. So we've completed two important steps. One, we have reviewed the mortgage application form, and then we found out that the net income information was missing, so we asked the customer for it, she sent it, and then we've reviewed the pay slip. We figured out that it was outdated, so we've asked the customer for a recent pay slip. Now let's go back to the DataCap VM and upload a recent pay slip. So this is the correct pay slip. She either sends it by mail or she uploads it onto a portal. So we're just trying to simulate that. Peter, the DataCap operator, is able to see it. He does a scan so that it's scanned by the system, and he submits it for OCR. Again, we will just wait for a minute to see if the status changes. Now, whatever interaction is happening between systems here, this is an actual integration. So, something the China team and the team from Germany has worked on. And we are fortunate that one of the team members is there on the call today. So let's just do a refresh and see if the status changes. It should say verify. Okay, it's running now. I think we'll give it a few seconds and it should change. There you go. Now, as you can see, she has sent the correct net income. So Peter will just take a look at it, maybe validate it using the system, and he submits it for export to ECM. Okay. We'll just refresh the screen while it's being exported. Okay, there you go. That was quick. Let's go back to DataCap and let's see what's come up. Okay, here you go. So we'll pick the last one. Okay. Now let's see if the income. Okay, now we have the new income information. So we are all sorted there. However, as you can see, the address, so apparently the RPA system has completed the task of checking the land registrar application, and it came out saying land registrar evaluation already mortgaged. Now, if that happens, Michelle, it'll be difficult for Jane to get the loan, because Michelle needs to make sure that this particular address is not already mortgaged. So you can't have multiple mortgages on the same house. So that could be one of the reasons why it's doing that. And it's all part of the process flow, the way you've trained and orchestrated it. So she figures out that the system has come back saying it can't be done because it's already mortgaged, but there's something wrong with this address. So she has the latest address of the customer. So what we could do is, let's see how we can change the address. So she does a close here, and then we go to cases and we do a search. So under cases in business automation workflow, you can search for cases that are being worked upon. So let's click on this case. This is the case that we are working on. Let's pull up this case. And now, as you can see, let me just scroll down. Okay. There's something wrong here. So she figures out that the actual address is East 10th Street and not I-0 Street. So there's something wrong here. That's why DataCap had sent a trigger initially. So she'll just do 10th Street and she'll save it. Okay. Now once she saves, let's just save and close here. Let's go back to work and pull up the same case again. Now, if you can see, it's showing up as East 10th Street. Now, this has been corrected. We've already done a risk assessment. So we'll probably also do a risk assessment again. We did a preliminary risk assessment, which he passed. We'll try and re-evaluate this case. So we go to tasks. And we will see, okay, great. Now, as you can see, there are 3 different steps that have come up. Request property revaluation, which means that now that I've changed the address, the RPA will go back into the land registrar application, query that particular platform to figure out if this particular address has a mortgage already. So we'll start this. Okay. We'll also start some of the other tasks, like performing a risk assessment. Let's do that. Okay. Considering this is a demo environment, so you may see some of these steps repeating, on the screen, but in a production environment, that should not happen. Okay, so we've performed all the different steps, and let's just save, and let's just close. Let's just quickly see, okay. So there you go, the RPA is working in the back. It found the address, and let's go back to the case. Okay, now the check mark is no longer there, which means that the RPA system has come back saying that the land registrar application has mentioned or has notified the business automation workflow system that there is no current mortgage on the property, which is why you see the checkbox which was checked earlier is no longer checked because we changed the address. And the net income information is fine. You also have the risk assessment decision, which is congratulations, your offer has been approved. Now she will have to send this to Marie, who is a lead mortgage officer, for a final review. So she will start the final review. Yes. And she will just do a proceed. And it's out of her basket. Now, what we've done here, just to do a quick recap, is, we've reviewed the mortgage application. We've ironed out certain errors that were there in the application. We validated them. We asked the customer to send more information. Again, we simulated that if the information sent by the customer is not recent, and if it's outdated, what to do or how the system reacts. And then we asked the customer to send the correct information, which helped us make the decision on the loan. Because sometimes incorrect application or incorrect information on applications can really affect the decisioning on a loan. So now it's Marie's job to decide if this person should get a mortgage or not. So we go to the work dashboard where Marie will see a case because it's out of Michelle's purview. So she will do a final review. She will claim this task and she will go all the way down and check all the different parameters. Everything's fine. There is no checkbox here. So this house is not mortgaged. She'll grant the final approval. You see, it's also given her a risk rating. That's the risk assessment message that ODM helps complete. And she grants a final approval and she does a submit. And there you go. The whole case has been closed. So in this manner, what we see is that how these 5 different systems have come together and helped an enterprise process a mortgage application end to end. While there could be steps before and there could be steps after this, because there's this whole aspect of, post the decisioning, then the disbursement may take a couple of days. But if an enterprise can use these 5 capabilities, or maybe some of these capabilities, they can really bring down the turnaround time of processing a loan. Second, the audit trail will be complete because in financial institutions, regulations are pretty strict. when it comes to auditing. So, and we have seen some cases in India where banks have turned out big loans to these individuals, and they've become bad debts. So, using RPA, you can actually orchestrate the entire application process, and it also records. It has the ability to record everything that the agent did, so that tomorrow, if you want to go back in and figure out if the application process was followed to the hilt, you can make sure of that. So with that, I will conclude, and I'll see if you have any questions. We also have Bu Feng. I'll just see if Bu Feng is still there. I think he's still there. So if there are any questions, Bu Feng is the person who actually worked on these VMs and created this environment for us. I will send you all the information about this particular demonstration on how to set up the VMs, how to reserve the demo using the Cloud Concierge CSIDE. And I've even created a demo script for this. We've recorded this conversation. There's also a different video that you can look up in the box folder that I will share shortly, which is an end-to-end demonstration of what we just saw, along with some key elements of how different systems play out. This entire exercise is also available in the form of a lab. So you can either run the end-to-end lab like I did, or you can work on individual systems. You can actually work on ODM, I beg your pardon, you can actually work on DataCap, RPA, and business automation workflow independently as part of a lab and run it for your customers, if and when there is an opportunity. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's open up for any questions.
So Vignesh, there's one question. During your presentation, you mentioned that RPA internally uses bot to get the information from the land registrar, right?
Right.
Is it actually a bot, or is it a simple API call to just get the status as yes or no?
That's a very good question. Apparently, with respect to the land registrar application, see, the land registrar application is, this is a standalone external Java application. It's a fat client and has no API. It has no API capabilities that could be called. So that's why we are trying to simulate how a bot can actually query the system and come back with the decisioning. We wanted to sort of simulate. I believe Bu Feng can also keep me honest here, that they wanted to simulate a scenario where some of your systems could be legacy and may not give you the ability to use APIs because there isn't, they don't provide API gateway capabilities. So if you have a scenario like that, they wanted to simulate how you can do it even with a legacy application. Now, this land registrar application, for all you know, could be a third-party application, maybe something that's maintained by the federal agencies or the government. As even in Government of India has something like that, I believe, today. They're working on it. So yes, there's no API here. It's actually the bot doing the work and getting the decision. Bu Feng, would you like to add anything there?
No, you described very well, actually, Vignesh, and there's no API available for this simulation demo scenario. And actually, if the client already have the API available, I would recommend to use the API. But for some legacy applications, there's no available API. We have to do the UI integrations like the human interact with the system. This is about place here.
Actually, for this simulation, I mean, is it that low? So question is, what does bot take input as? Does it take the customer name and the address as input, or is it just a simulation which just throws out some yes or no kind of thing, or actually we are doing anything?
No, so it is actually doing it. The bot has been supplied with certain parameters that it needs to check. So, for example, in a typical risk management scenario, there could be 5 or 6 things that you need to measure the facts against. So if the customer has, you have procured certain pieces of information from the customer, you will map them against what is required. So they may not have taken in this demonstration, they may not have taken all the different parameters, but they took a couple of parameters just to show you. Of course, we cannot show you the ODM system. That's where they are, that's where the whole decisioning works. But they've taken a couple of parameters. For example, I think Bufeng can give us the parameters that have been taken in the back. But I think this is an actual play out of a scenario. They've taken a couple of them. Bufeng, do you have any? Would you know if they've taken any specific parameters to do the decisioning in the demo?
Yeah, for the ODM risk assessment, we take the property price and the income, net income from the request, and based on that, we will calculate the risk. It's a simple, risk assessment actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, which is not there in the documentation, so I think that's good information. So that's what it is, Devinder. I hope we are able to answer your question.
Yeah. This is just out of curiosity I'm asking because.
No, please, sir. Curiosity is important.
When you mentioned land register, I was thinking, what is bot doing behind the scene? Because it's a simple API call. If you design and if you architect a solution, it has to be just a simple call saying, okay, it is yes or no in terms of whether it can be taken further or not. Okay.
Yeah, you can do an API call, or you could do simple scripting in the back. You can run maybe a macro, which can do this if it's just FYI, right? So yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. So that's what it is. We still have some time for some more questions. So anybody else? Any other questions on this demonstration? Because it's great to have Bufeng also, who's worked on it. Okay, I guess I'll take that as a no. I really thank you all for joining this morning, and I hope this session was fruitful. I will be sharing quite a lot of information on this with you all by day end. We have an event here, so I could be sending some information out by the end of day today on this, and you should be able to run the entire scenario on your own or individual scenarios the way you like it. So thank you so much for your time, everybody, and you have a wonderful week and a great new year. Thanks.
Vignesh.
Thanks, Vignesh.
Bye.
Thanks.